Welcome to Own the Season podcast. We will talk to industry insiders along with outdoor enthusiasts to help you own your season. Now let's join hosts Art and Michelle Helen with Brad Jones. Own the Season podcast is sponsored by Griffin Armament, the oldest privately owned silencer manufacturer in the United States. Go to griffinarmament.com to learn how you can get a silencer shipped to your door. Griffin Armament, engineered silence.
Hello and welcome to Own the Season podcast. I'm Michelle Helen and I'm here with Art Helen and Brad Jones. And today I think we're talking about deer hunting. Is that right, guys?
Yeah, a little more particular, I think, of our season structure here in the state of Wisconsin.
Which season exactly are you talking about? Which one of the 8 deer seasons are we talking about?
And that's it, is...
Oh, maybe 7. Maybe it's not 8. But
yeah, it's...
You get my idea.
You know, and there's a lot of different opinions, varying opinions on it. And I know, Brad, you've got some numbers that you'll read off. But, you know, I look at it, and CWD really screwed us years and years ago. It was such a huge tradition through the whole state of Wisconsin. There's still tradition up north for the 9-day gun season. But it was something we look forward to every year. Now, not so much, because, you know, it used to be, and a lot of the younger generation doesn't understand or wasn't here for this, but, you know, we would have your bow season, and it would shut down on Thursday. So then Friday, you weren't even allowed to hunt. You weren't even allowed to sight in rifles, shoot a rifle, anything on a Friday. And that was like, you know, the day everybody would travel to camp. Everybody would go out, and you'd get all these people together, and you'd have cookouts and different things. And those that didn't have land, you know, they'd still go to these cookouts, these little things, and then opening morning, you would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you'd head downtown to the local restaurant, and they would have, you know, early morning breakfast for everybody made, the hunters, you know, opening day breakfast, and places were just packed. I mean, it was incredible. And now you just don't see that. You don't see... You know, in other parts of the state, I've talked to people, and they say, yeah, we still have some of that. And I think that tradition being gone has somewhat hurt our numbers, because that used to be something everybody got involved in, and now people are like, well, we aren't recruiting kids. We aren't recruiting. And there's a ton of reasons why we're not doing that. And I could go on for days about... why we're not recruiting and why things are the way they are. But I'm really, you know, not going to focus as much on that today. I might come back around to it a little bit, but I'm not going to really focus on that today. You know, I want us to talk more about our opinions on, should we really look at shortening these seasons up? I mean, should we get back to the way it was, or are people happy, you know, the way it is now? And like I said, I think Brad's got some numbers. And how, you know, what are your thoughts on it, Brad?
Well, let's start with some numbers here. You know, the DNR said there was 2 million deer in the state, is what their estimates were. And if you look at the, you know, preliminary numbers, harvest numbers, it wasn't down as far as what I thought, you know, overall. The gun numbers were down a little bit more, but archery numbers were actually up this year so far. So it was different than what I thought.
Is that inclusive of crossbow, or is that compound only?
That includes everybody.
Okay.
All of them, yeah. Archery was actually up 1.1%. Now, those are preliminary numbers from the beginning of December, so we don't have like the holiday hunt in there or anything after the gun season, really. But yeah, I heard a lot of people this year. for one, did not hunt. I had some health issues at the end of last year. I'm still recovering from, so I chose not to hunt this year. But people I talked to said they just weren't seeing the number of deer that are being thrown out there.
Yeah, I think the 2 million number, I think they're, they're biologists, whatever, but I think they're freaking smoking something because they are, in my opinion, they are way off. And I grew up here, and I'm looking at back in the 80s and 90s, they were talking same numbers, 2 million deer, but we were killing 600,000 deer during rifle season. Now they're saying 2 million deer, and we're killing 300 or 350,000 deer. Where did the other 300,000 go? I mean, the numbers don't add as far as I'm concerned. Again, I'm not a biologist. This is my opinion. And so, but I don't see it. I'm in the woods because of what I do for a living. I am in the woods pretty much every day. I run multiple cameras on a lot of different pieces of property. I do not see the deer numbers they're talking. Absolutely do not. Are the deer numbers better this year than they were last year? Yes, they are. As far as antlerless deer, as far as mature bucks, absolutely not.
Well, even antlerless, like we hunted, really hard during the, early archery season. And, many times we were getting skunked and not seeing any deer. And if we saw deer, we saw like 2 does and a fawn.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not seeing, large groups of antlerless either.
No, but I mean, this year I think we went skunked a lot less than what we have in the past 2 or 3 years. So we might have only,
but we're seeing the same does and fawns.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's not like we're seeing, just based on like who they're with, who we're seeing them with and where on the property, we're seeing them, where they, kind of hang out is their
and I do,
range, their main
our
area.
numbers are still down, yes, but I think they are better this year. Not like tons better, but they're better. But our overall mature deer are way down. And I think, Brad, listening to your numbers, and again, I would really like to see a breakdown of this somewhere through the DNR or whatever, because
how they count, you mean, those numbers?
Well, that's one question.
Yeah, that's one question.
Yeah.
Where do they come up with that? But one of my big things is, when you get to how you're breaking down archery and your rifle seasons, well, and everybody's saying, well, we need the holiday hunt, and we need the 9-day, and we need all these antlerless hunts. And then all the archery hunters are complaining, bitching, saying, well, you know what, you're taking in where we could be out late season bow hunting, which I'm one of those. I agree with that. Then you have the rifle hunters on the other side saying, well, you guys already get too many days as it is. Well, my own personal, and this is what I'd like to see them break down, is you look at the archery numbers are up. The archery sales for licenses are up. I believe where a lot of that is coming from is because of the legalization of crossbows. So what's happening is you are now getting into some of the younger kids, and you're getting into some of the older men and women that don't like the cold. I take my dad, for example. He doesn't like the cold. He can't stand being out in the cold because of some of the medicines he's on. He's had, some heart problems, and so he gets cold very easy. He doesn't rifle hunt anymore, but he loves to bow hunt. So what's he do? He bought a crossbow, and he's out there, and now it's a one deer and you're done. And so these guys are going out and they're shooting that deer with the crossbow early, getting counted as archery, and they're not rifle hunting. Where years ago, when they didn't have the crossbow, And I'm not going to say that they're, simple, easy, but they are easier than using a compound because you have more movement drawing a compound. The bow is already cocked for you. You have a scope. There's other things that do make it easier. It's legal. I'm not going to say don't use it. You can't do this and that and everything else. I'm just stating my opinion on why I think it's easier. My dad says I can't draw a bow back anymore, but I can go out and I can sit in my blind and I can shoot this deer now at 20, 30 yards, and he doesn't have to worry about gun season. I believe there are a lot more of those people out there today than there was, and that is why the numbers are starting to change, and you are starting to see our archery numbers go up because of the legalization of that, and our rifle numbers coming down because so many of those people are already done shooting that deer, and they don't want to go back out and get cold and worry about the rifle season. Again, my opinion. And if that's the case and those numbers are coming down, why do we need so many flipping seasons? If everybody's saying the same thing and there's no does out there, why do you have all these doe seasons and they don't have the participation? That's what I would like to see. I would like to see the participation numbers for these late seasons.
Yeah. So what did you get this year for archery? You got a buck and 2 doe tags if you're hunting the southern part of the state?
Yes.
And then you do the same for gun hunting too, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Plenty
of opportunities.
Well, yeah, and then you can get more doe tags.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's, if you want your meat, yeah, I mean, it's a great time to go out and do that. But again, for a lot of guys, they don't like the cold. So they're going to go out and they're going to shoot their doe early, or they're going to shoot their buck, and just kind of go from there. They aren't going to, and things are changing because the demographics of our deer and the age, whether it's due to, again, disease or, what have you, predation, all these things for our older deer, you're starting to see things change. And the deer management goals that we used to have are not the same. And so now you're starting to see.
Are you talking about goals as like individual landowners?
Yes,
and what they
as
might
individual
want to
landowners. And so that also changes. I mean, numbers were down too because people were like, I'm only shooting a 5-year-old buck on their land. And now those deer aren't there anymore. So they're like, well, this is the best deer I have. And they're shooting it, which that's fine. I mean, that is their right. They can do whatever they want. It's just like guys on public land or private land that want to shoot a spike or a 4-point.
Right.
Have at it. That's not my place. I don't pay your taxes and I don't buy your license, so I have no right to tell you what you can and cannot shoot on that piece of property. On my own, I will give you rules and things what you can and cannot shoot. But I think that something has to be done because when these younger generation is going out and they're sitting and they say that there's 2 million deer. Again, I don't know where they get those numbers, but I think they're pushing that so people to try to drive license sales. And when the kids go out and they sit all day on opening day and do not see a deer, they're done.
That's tough. That's a tough one.
It's not like it was when we were kids.
Yeah.
And now they, sit in a blind. So do I. I'm 55 years old. I've earned that right because I've been, you might not say I did earn it or didn't, but I've, been in some of the crappiest weather in the world from starting at, 11 years old, 10 years old till now 40 some years of sitting in, rain, sleet, snow, cold, whatever, that if I can afford to buy myself a nice blind and sit in it, I'm gonna. And today now, the grandkids, your own kids are starting to grow up with that style of hunting. And so, that's another thing. Because of that, we're all sitting longer, so we're not pushing deer like we used to.
Right. I was just going to say that, when I first started hunting, especially during the 9-day gun season, a lot of deer drives.
Yeah.
We shot a lot of our deer on drives, so deer were moving quite a bit more, I think, back in those days.
Oh, definitely. And I've listened to Michelle tell stories about their family and going out and doing that, and myself, as me and my dad, but we'd get together with family or with neighbors, and you'd go on their land, they'd go on your land, you'd go wherever,
right,
and push deer. And now you don't. You try to protect. If you're doing quality deer
right.
management, you're trying to protect some of those deer, which is good and bad.
I think it's
because I think it makes it harder for people that can't afford property as well. I think when I was a kid, I would just go door to door and knock, and I bet you, I'm going to say 80% of the people let me hunt. If you do that now, I bet you it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I think people are as willing to let you on their property anymore.
Right.
Yeah. I think the not driving deer on your own private land, it's partly to kind of protect maybe what's there and not push them to the, neighbors, especially if they're, neighbors that are not the ones that you get along with great, and but also I think it, doing deer drives, you don't, then you've got the deer running, right? And you don't have as much, I think, you don't have as much of an opportunity to get a look at what you're shooting. I mean, that was kind of the days of it's brown, it's down, and everybody's going to shoot the deer.
Yeah.
That comes out of the drive, so I think it's both. You don't have time to see, is it a doe or buck? Is it a big buck? Because they're running,
Yeah. Well, back in the day, I don't think there was anybody or very few that were even considering holding off on deer.
Right. And if you happen to shoot a big one, it was, kind of just luck because you were going to shoot it no matter what. And oh my God, it is a big one. Yay for me,
Yeah. I mean, back in the 80s, we'd always go out and you'd shoot your deer, and it was, the Iowa County scrub buck. That's what you killed back then because they had no age structure to them. You kill a 2.5-year-old that was 15 inches wide or 16 inches, and you just thought, you shot the new world record. And so that's all changed, and again, most neighbors, for us, I get along with the neighbors. So I don't worry about it, but I listen to some of them, doing traveling around and doing seminars and stuff. Deer management has been great on certain things, and it's also hurt on some things. I've listened to kids quit because there's rules and regulations on their property that say, hey, you know what, you can't shoot a deer unless it's over 150 inches. That's pretty tough, for a kid, telling them, and pretty soon they're 5 years into it, and that poor kid still hasn't shot anything. Where I think if you look at it, even if it's private land, and you truly look at deer biology, you look at certain things, and manage more for age instead of that score or that antlers, you're always going to have something to go after. You're always going to have a deer to hunt, no matter what. And say, okay, yeah, this is, you've got 5 3-year-olds and this one is just not a great one. And so we'd rather have this one off the farm just so we can harvest something, and they want to shoot a buck. Right. All right, if they've never done that, let them do it.
Yeah.
It's about fun and about having, the camaraderie with the people you're hunting with, until you get to an age where you can all sit down and get on the same page. Until then, go out and have fun. Do what you got to do.
Right. I think a mistake people make too when they set their management programs, if they have young kids that are hunting on the property, leave those deer that you choose to shoot for the younger kids. Yeah. Because if we're trying to grow older deer, most of us have shot plenty of 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds. So we're the ones that should be holding back, but keep the kids interested. Let them shoot, anything maybe for their first one, work their way up, but save the does. If you have a number of does that you want to harvest, save those for the kids to keep them interested. Because like you said, Art, if the kids aren't seeing anything or have opportunities to shoot, they're not going to do it.
Yeah, and that's it. And there's, like I said, so many variables and so many things and so many seasons. Which kind of started this whole thing is there's so many seasons to get somebody out there to shoot something. Again, these late seasons for myself, doe only seasons, I'm like, you start running into bucks are already dropping their antlers. So if they're trying to do management, somebody goes out and shoots this 4-year-old that's already dropped its antlers. Man, I shot this smoking doe, and they get up to it and go, ugh. That's why if we're gonna shoot does, we make sure that they're does, or we really like to try to do it early in the year, before they're bred, because now you're killing how many instead of just one.
Exactly.
But there's so many different ways to look at management and how you do things, and we've talked a little bit about it with the older deer, the younger deer, and it all comes down to everybody has their opinion. Everybody believes they're an expert in whatever they're doing because they saw it on YouTube, or they did certain things, or they've seen it on their property for 5 years and it's the only property. Start asking, looking, reading books, watching a bunch of different stuff on management to learn. And, most people try to go off of body size and look at that and say, well, this is how old this deer is. That's a good indicator, but it's tough, because just like people, everybody's different. I'm a big dude, and there's other people that, same age as me, and they're, look like a Greek god, built and everything else, and, skinny, well fit. And then there's others at my age that are, way overweight and whatever. Deer the same way. And so it's pretty tough, unless you actually have history with that deer. So, it's, look at that stuff, and again, have fun with it. Get people out, and that's why I think the DNR has so many seasons. I personally do not agree with them all. I think they need to get rid of the holiday season, this holiday hunt that's going on right now, because there are plenty of opportunities. If they do the 4-day doe only season, they have the youth season, they have, all these different things. And they say, well, you worry about disease. Well, here's the thing. It's just like a person. If a person's sick and you pressure that person, they're going to get sicker. So the more pressure you put on these animals, you know what? That a lot of them don't survive because they feel that pressure, they get sick, and then they don't recover. Because you go from one thing to another and putting pressure on these things. So why do we keep doing this? And then it's, oh, well, we need more money for CWD research and CWD this and CWD that. And you know what? I don't care. I'm sick of the freaking CWD crap. You're not going to get rid of it. Can you somewhat control it? I don't know, maybe. But let's get the seasons back to a normal structure like it used to be so we can get people involved. I think the problem is, too, we have so many opportunities that we're going to wait and do it tomorrow. We're going to go, tomorrow it's supposed to be nice, so we're going to hunt tomorrow. Or we're going to hunt next week when it's this, and then the weather changes, or something comes up in life and you don't do it. Where if you shorten that season again and get back to that 9 days, guess what? You got 9 days, you got to get it done. I don't care what the weather is, I don't care what this is. We're going to hunt hard so we can get it done. And so I think sometimes too many opportunities create an issue too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's like you said about the 9-day gun season. You're going to have more people in the woods for those 9 days, which is probably going to keep the deer moving. You're going to probably see more deer. Um, but like you said, if you can look at your calendar and see 3 months worth of time you can hunt and just pick your week you want to hunt, that's a lot of time that there are less hunters in the woods than what there used to be back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially, I don't know if, with the almost unlimited doe tags anyways. And that might be based different in different zones or different units, across the state. But yeah, what's really being gained by all these antlerless seasons?
Yeah, we had almost 800,000 licenses sold in the state this year. 790,000 licenses were sold. Now, that's everything. That's,
Okay.
gun and archery, but dang, that's a lot of license.
Yeah, that is. That's absolutely crazy. And then, so if you figure that out, all right, and what would that be for gun licenses? I think there was.
Gun license were 550,611.
Okay. So if you take that and there's 2 million deer out there,
Mm-hmm.
that means everybody should have had an opportunity to kill a deer. Right?
Should have seen
It should have seen deer.
Or
like
see
4
deer.
deer. Everybody should have seen an average
You
of
know,
4 deer.
an average 4 deer, three to 4 deer, right? And you talk to people and I didn't see anything. Other people are like, I saw all kinds, which is telling me there are certain parts of the state. Well, then look at those parts of the state.
Yeah.
Because it's not that way through the whole state anymore.
No.
And so it's pretty tough. And again, I would not want that job as the DNR biologist, figuring some of this stuff out. But, they have all these meetings that we should be getting to talk to these guys. And the problem is most of us have quit going because it feels like our voices aren't heard anyway. We go in and voice our opinions, and then they do whatever the hell they want anyway.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
so it's like, well, why should I waste my time even going? And I guess, maybe if we all start going again and start bitching enough, maybe they'll start listening.
Well, I think it can't just bitch. You have to have a solution in mind. And I also think that those hearings are structured where they already have the questions there, the topics. And I think there's a process to submit or put forth something to be considered in the hearings. Because I haven't been to one of the hearings in a long time, but I have from time to time filled out the survey, answered the questions online that are asked. And, there's not an opportunity for a person just to complain about something or ask a question or propose, hey, I think we should get rid of this holiday doe hunt. There's not an opportunity in it for that at that point. I think there's something that needs to be done prior to that. And I don't know without, looking up what the process is to get add a question, to the hearing.
Yeah. We used to have the organizations that did a lot of representing. I don't know if that's true anymore or not, if they're still there. Wisconsin bow hunters and Wisconsin trappers and everybody.
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, we see it on the trapping side, because okay. we're both in the the Trapper Facebook group for right. Trapping Wisconsin, as well as I'm on the one for the Trapper Association. So I do see discussion there and people who are putting forth questions. Mm-hmm. To ask about things related to the trapping regs. So I think that's probably the organizations that are doing that. So I think definitely becoming involved in a productive way to let our voice be heard. I do wish that Wisconsin added some questions to the harvest reports at minimum. It's not quite, there's like there's the surveys that you get for, and I don't know if they're just random and if they're just for specific species, but the surveys that ask, did you hunt or trap, and how many days did you, different questions that are getting at the effort, the participation, and the effort. But like how many people actually fill those out, because they can be long at times, but if we're not filling out those surveys and people are just throwing them away, we're throwing away an opportunity to provide data, about participation and effort. We have had the opportunity to hunt out of state, and sometimes then when we fill out the harvest report, in addition to like, when and what time and, sex of the animal and age and whatever, adult or, so forth. There's like a few questions about, what did you see any of this species? Did you see any of this animal? Like how many of this animal did you see? And it may not even be the animal that you harvested, the species but they're asking information about some other species and sightings. So it's just an opportunity to gather more data. And it seems like it would be like pretty simple to do. But then I think I mentioned that. I think I brought that up to somebody, and that I don't know if they're restricted by legislature on some of that. It seems like silly if it would be.
Right.
Because it seems like, what's the harm in tacking on 3 to 5 questions?
Sure.
About what people are seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, again, like we said, there's plenty of ample opportunity to voice your opinion, just like there is plenty of ample opportunities to get out and hunt. And looking on Facebook and being part of social media, because what we do, there's a couple things, that just drive me absolutely batty. One is how rude and disrespectful people are anymore on there, but how they talk about, if you're a rifle hunter, that you don't have enough opportunity to go out and kill a deer, that archery hunters have way too much time. Archery hunters complain because the rifle hunters, well, if you look at the seasons in the state of Wisconsin, we start out with an archery season. Partway into that, in October, we have a youth rifle season, okay, where anybody who is strictly an archer, you have to wear orange when you're out there doing that. And obviously you're out dealing with people with weapons. Then you get into your rifle season. Or actually you have, I think it's 4-day doe hunt somewhere in there. Or is it after the rifle season?
It's after muzzleloader.
Okay. So then you have your rifle season. Then as soon as the day rifle season closes, you have a 10-day muzzleloader season. Then you have maybe 2 days of archery or 3 days, and then it goes right back to a 4-day doe only season.
No, there's no break.
Right away.
There isn't?
It's
so
right
it's right away?
It's right
okay.
away.
Yeah, right after muzzleloader.
Right. So basically, if you went out and you are a gun hunter and purchased a muzzleloader, you have, what is that, 19, 23 days? Am I right?
Yep.
22 days?
Yeah.
22 days straight of rifle season. And then you go from...
Or gun season.
Of gun season, right. And then you go from there to a few days, and then you go back to, depending on where you are, to rifle season again for doe only. Yes, you can bow hunt during those seasons, but if you are in, archery or in a doe only zone, you can only hunt for a doe then with your bow.
Yeah.
Then there are other places that go.
And you have to wear orange.
Yes, you have to wear orange
during archery season.
And
or
so
if you're
I mean,
hunting.
Again, there's plenty of opportunities for everybody out there, and there might be too many opportunities out there for people, or season structures, and And for people who want to manage big deer and try to get those deer to older age, those people like myself, we compare ourselves to Iowa, Illinois. You look at when their seasons are, straight wall cartridges, muzzleloader shotgun. They're after the rut, way after, so why do they grow those big deer? There's a reason for that. And a lot of it's season structure. We can try here, but there's a couple things that, and again, I'm going to say, this is my opinion. People can do what they want on their own land, but the thing that I hate more than anything is people trying to BS their way through certain things or lie about certain things that say, I'm going to do deer management because they want to sound good to their friends or whoever that they're talking to. But then opening day, they shoot a little basket rack 8-pointer and say, it was just about ready to jump the fence into the neighbor's and the neighbor would have shot it anyway. Okay, here's your logic. That deer, if you are truly wanting to do management on your property, now you're saying it jumps the fence, the neighbor's going to shoot anyway. Well, you let it jump the fence and let him kill it, because now you've just killed 1.5 or 2-year-old buck, because he's going to kill the next one that comes by. So, and if you are truly doing management, you are not. So you've killed 2 deer instead of that one and letting that older buck. You have shot it and used it.
And the neighbor then is maybe done and out of the woods.
Right. So you've used it as an excuse to be able to shoot that deer. You may disagree with me, and again, it's my opinion, but my opinion is you're using it as an excuse to shoot that deer. And again, I could care less. It's your property. It's your tag. Just don't lie about it. Say, I just want to go out and shoot a deer for something to eat. Okay? And if that's the case, then shoot a doe. Or if you want, shoot that little buck. I don't care, but don't say that you're doing the management and trying to get them older. That gets me more than absolutely anything. So you have enough seasons to go out and worry about, how much meat do I want? Or, I need this meat. And true, there are a few people that really do need that venison. I hunt Absolutely. Because I love that venison. It's very good for you. It's a good meat. Do I absolutely need it? Can I afford to go to a store and buy some hamburger if I need to survive? Yes, I would rather have venison. But, people are like, well,
it's a good thing we could afford to buy meat if we have to, because our season was not very productive this year so far.
It was a bad year so far.
We're kind of into the bottom of the freezer.
Yeah, so far.
For our venison.
Yeah.
Depends on how anxious I am. I may get out of bed tomorrow morning because I believe that there is still a doe season going on. I may take the rifle out and try to crack one. But.
And that's where, okay, so let's, say that, we'll, find out how we can make some suggestions or proposals, right? Looking at the seasons, if the reason for the holiday hunt is only in selected zones, and is that the thought of that also is people are back home again, where maybe the family property is, and we'll get some groups of people that maybe want to go out, and have opportunity because they have off of work and so forth. What would happen if Wisconsin was able to get rid of the earlier antlerless only season in the middle of December, the second week of December, and just did the holiday hunt statewide? Because that earlier one is statewide.
Right.
So if the thought is, people have better opportunity over the holidays, maybe there's not a reason to have the earlier season.
I would like to actually see what is the reasoning behind those late season hunts? I mean, are they trying to harvest more animals? Or are they just trying to give opportunity?
Right, and are they really accomplishing getting more animals, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And kind of and kind of back to the, like, are we really like harvesting more, or are we just spreading it out across more time?
Yeah.
And in the
exactly.
meanwhile, limiting archery opportunities by having so much season that's gun hunting, where you've got to wear orange,
Right.
where you're hunting in a situation where you're, more closer to the animal, not taking the longer shots that you do with the gun. And here you have to wear orange or the bright pink. And people in the woods pushing and, guns going off, if you're wanting to archery hunt during all of those.
The holiday hunt's a great, can be a great thing if you have food sources, and the weather's really crappy. That's the thing is, if they want those numbers, I mean, you look at guys that are sitting on big cornfields right now or bean fields or whatever that are left, and they're like, man, I'm seeing all kinds of deer. Well, yeah, you're drawing them from how many miles away because you're the only food source there is and it's freezing cold. And so they're drawing them in and shooting them, which is helping get the numbers the DNR wants. But if all of a sudden that weather doesn't change and they don't need to go to that, how many people are going to hunt all the neighboring areas again? That's the thing is, it is so dependent on weather that, that last season and dependent on food, depending on, there's so many variables in that. Like now, what was it last night in northern Wisconsin? They got another 19 inches of snow or something. Right. Guys aren't going to be out there, because they already had, I think, 13 or 14 on the ground.
Right.
So now you got, you got 30 inches of freaking snow on the ground. Who's going to go out and trudge around that for a deer?
Yeah, but you just never know in Wisconsin. I mean, the other antlerless season is in December, too. People could get dumped on with snow then just as well.
They can, but again, so then you get rid of those altogether and go back to a 9-day. You know what? Now you're going to really pressure the 9-day and people are going to get it done.
Maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know the answers.
Yeah,
I don't.
It almost seems like, right, it's been like, let's add this season. Oh, let's add another season. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, we've got 7 seasons now,
I think everything changed when CWD was found in the state of Wisconsin.
Oh, guaranteed.
Because then they just opened everything up. You could use a gun right away. You shoot as many as you want. And then I think whoever was studying the deer said, we need to shoot as many as we can to control this disease. That didn't seem to happen. I think a lot of it stems back to CWD.
Well, it does.
The
It's all a money grab.
Yeah.
And I think, the gun season, the gun season has gone back to a 9-day. There's these other seasons around it, but there was a period of time where that was longer, with the CWD, that was longer. And then it was kind of like, or it started earlier and all those things like you just mentioned, and kind of back to that, like deer camp kind of thought and people, getting excited and that tradition. It was kind of like, well, when do we do it?
Right.
What night do we get together? Do we do this in, I don't know if it was October, like, do we do it now or do we do it when the season used to be, like the weekend before Thanksgiving, Now, there is kind of that 9-day season and there's some of that returning. Like we went to a party, this year. I think that's the thing too, is it is what people make of it. And, I think people, the other thing too, the tradition that is gone and I think things are fine the way they are. I don't think we should have to go back to like registering your deer at a registration station. Because again, we hunt a lot of other states and, we're submitting our harvest, via the website or your phone. But that was part of it too, right? You'd see people at the registration station and, congratulate people and talk about your hunt and tell the stories and things there too. But it a lot of it's what you make of it and, committing to, hosting that, night before, shindig or,
Sure.
accepting the invitation and going to someone else's if they're having them and, making it fun.
Yeah.
Right.
And now you have, go ahead, Brad.
We used to hunt up north and up in Lincoln County, and then the community would have like a big event that day before, night before, and have venison burgers and everything,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the big buck contest. And yeah, those
Well,
days are gone, I'm afraid.
they are, and I think there's a lot of reasons. I said, one, you don't have to register them, so they aren't stopping at these. And I feel bad for the mom and pop stores because that hurt them more than it hurt anybody else.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely,
because
100%.
people would stop in, they'd buy a pop or something, and then, hey, you know what? I shot 27 times that deer today. I need more ammo. Certain
Yeah.
things like that, and then they blame it on the kid. Dropped my rifle on the way out the house, and
Right.
but they hurt, and I think now, it's all being replaced by social media, and because now everybody is back and forth sending pictures while they sit in a blind on their phone. And, hey, I just shot this buck, and they'll post it on social media, things like that, which is cool and good for people. That's what gets you excited and gets kids involved that want to post it. That's awesome, but it's not good for business for the small businesses, And now what I'm afraid of is, AI. AI is doing so much that, people are already doing it. Hey, I shot this late season buck, and here's the problem, okay, that a lot of people aren't thinking of. Because in the state of Wisconsin, and I know this for a fact, that they do have a team that looks at social media posts, looking for people that post pictures of what they've shot, and then they cross-reference them with their harvest records, okay? So if you're doing it just as a joke with AI, you better make it so it's a world record. Because if you post that out there and you don't have a deer registered, you might, not guaranteed, but you may get a visit from a warden, and then you better be able to explain that or you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And so that's some of the stuff that scares me, is people are going to go out and try to have fun doing that. And you can't, because technically, if you're saying you shot that, you better have record of that done and registered, or again, you're going to be in trouble for it. So that kind of scares me because there's so many of the youth that are so involved in social media now and want to do all this stuff and have fun with their friends and post this stuff and send it to their friends. Hey, look what I shot and this and that. But you know what, guys, be careful when you're out there doing that. Because sometimes jokes aren't so funny when the law gets involved in it, So,
Yeah.
and you have, again, with what we've said, you have plenty of opportunities to get out there and actually harvest a deer anyway. And again, what is the right answer? I don't know. I have my opinions, like I've said all day, of, shorten them, get back to this, get back to that. Then you talk to the next person, they're like, crossbows have to have their own season. Back to bows. Well, then how are we going to break it down? Are we going to have a longbow recurve season, a compound season? And yes, technology has taken it where some of them are absolutely ridiculous. You look at like some of these that are guaranteed to group like 1 inch at 100 yards. I mean, that's great. I know rifles that'll do that, but the weapon might be capable, but us as shooters, we might not be capable. So just because it says it doesn't mean you're trying to take it out of a box. That's part of why there are so many, and I hate to say this, but more wounded deer, I believe, today. Not necessarily all from crossbows, but it's the same thing. People buy a new bow, and they're like, man, I'm watching this on YouTube, and these guys are shooting at 80 yards with a regular bow, and they're hitting the bullseye all the time, and they think they can do it. Because the weapon's capable doesn't mean we are. So no matter what season it is, practice, whether it's gun or bow or whatever it is. But again, you have plenty of opportunities. And so where does that stop? Where do those seasons stop? I don't know. But I feel that we need to either make certain seasons shorter or combine those seasons a little more. But again, that's how I feel. Other people are going to say, no, they need to make them longer. So just sit back, look at, all the different season structures that are out there. Look at what you have for weapons, your time, and then start looking at your decisions and say, how do I really feel about this? Don't just jump off and say, oh my God, everybody on the internet is saying this, so this is how I feel now. No, make up your own mind, look at it, and be a voice of change and see if we can, if everybody wants it changed bad enough, we've all got to come together and try to change it.
Well, maybe let's kind of wrap up and summarize. So, because the fact is, your opinion doesn't matter right now. This whole podcast just spewing opinions doesn't mean shit, right? So
absolutely.
So let's summarize kind of some of the things, and we've been focusing on the Wisconsin, seasons here, but I think that there are some general ideas and suggestions that might apply in other states as well. If there's something about your, season structure, that you're not happy with. So, Brad, what's one thing that you recommend or would suggest people do regarding the deer season?
Get involved with an organization or go to your conservation congress meeting that are typically held in the spring and voice your opinion. You may not think that it matters, but the more voices we can get out there, changes could happen.
All right. Art, what's yours?
I agree. I think, you need to become part of an organization, whether it be the Turkey Federation, whether it be Wisconsin Bow Hunters, any of those local...
All of them. Every species that you love and want to
Ducks
pursue.
Unlimited. I mean, there's all kinds of them out there. And find out where they're putting that money towards and what they're fighting for. And if it's 100% with what you believe in, put that money into it and get there, because they're going to have the manpower behind them to go in and fight for you and fight for your rights.
And they probably are, you know, so even if you're not 100%, with it, if you can agree on the important stuff, right? But yeah, those are some folks that are our voices for sure. Yeah. I think mine would be kind of piggybacking on Brad's a little bit. Even if you can't get to, you need to answer the questions that are in the spring questionnaire, the survey, so that because we could go to the hearings, but I don't know that they're recording how many people say what, or how they're really collecting responses for each individual question. So when the survey does come out, fill it out, and also fill out every other survey that you get from your DNR in whatever state you were in. There might be some that you don't have a choice in. If you're answering questions with a harvest, if you're doing something like a hip survey for waterfowl, not optional, that's another, data collection tool. But also all the other ones that are sent by mail or email about, how your season went for whatever, game animal or fur-bearing, animal that it was, so that we're just providing more and more data to contribute to the science and the pool of information that the biologists have to work with. Anything else that anybody wants to say before we wrap this one up, guys?
I think we covered everything pretty much.
Yeah, and then some, right?
Yeah, and then some kind of little tantrum here and there. But
this was an opinion
right.
column. Yeah,
Yeah.
this was more opinion one. But hopefully we gave you all some ideas on, how you can get involved wherever you are and let your opinion be heard and own the season.
Follow Own the Season Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for listening.
Check back weekly for new episodes.